So I'm out here, got rid of the old electrical panel, and check this out. Whole thing was hacked together from an old sign, restricted access, maintenance only. That right there, the guy who sold me this boat is a legend, man. No matter what I do to this boat to kind of give it a new life and my own flavor, you never want to lose that spirit right there. I guess the boat is a little bit lighter now. There's going to be a lot of work as far as keeping it structurally sound, because it wobbles pretty good. This I guess used to be yellow. You gotta take some things apart before you put her back together again. I gotta actually get this done fairly quickly, since I've got to go pick someone up in 10 minutes, and I have to close the garage door before I go. So I gotta get this off. I'm assuming this fairly sturdy thing is the actual anchor point. And I've got this sort of 4-to-1 pulley set up. This is something I was planning on pulling boulders with, so it definitely helps out when lifting a 260-pound outboard. Garage is reinforced a little bit, so I've got a piece of wood connecting that, and that. So that hook's rated for 250 pounds safe working load, and my outboard's 260, so hopefully this all works. This handle's kind of necessary, because you can't just pull on the rope. And then the prusik up there catches, releases until the prusik catches, and I think we have cleared the boat. Get the wheel chock out of the way here. I guess I'd like to set this down on something without standing underneath it. Now this is going to be a bit sketch. Semi out of the way, unweight my prusik, and then guide this down. Let the prusik recatch. Unweight the prusik. Let it recatch. Okay, so we've got some of the weight off of it. I don't know if I should set it right down here. So we're not leaving too much weight here. Anyways, I gotta go get this boat out of here. So I know this is probably not safety 101. This is everything here is rated far beyond what I'm doing. But anyways, I gotta get the boat out of the garage so I can close the garage door and pick somebody up. But boat came off thanks to pulleys, and hopefully I can pull my boat out of sticky situations with this later, as well as maybe tow some rocks out of the way of some gold. That boat is really hard to lift without a 250-pound counterbalance on the back. I had to slide it back a little bit, and I threw an anchor and something in the back of the boat, but got her back into the yard. This rope's really quite strong. This prusik is where I'm a little bit concerned, but there's really not that much. It's not the full weight of the outboard, because I've got a fair bit sitting down there right now. I might be able to just leave it right where it is, but I still need to get the boat inside the rest of my garage here. I think I should have some room to get it in, because I'm gonna have to actually prep the boat, and I'd like to do that indoors since it's still kind of winter. I cannot believe it. So I'm pulling this apart. There's just torn apart plywood sitting on top, and this foam in here, and you think, okay, that's just some flotation foam. I took one piece out. This is it, and it weighs a ton. It is completely waterlogged, wet, it's kind of hard to lift up with one hand. And there's a ton of it in here, so I'm gonna weigh exactly how much waterlogged foam was sitting in the middle of this boat. This blew me away. That's the foam that came out of where this seat was. If you don't factor the thin tin lid and you just look at the foam itself, there was about 50 kilograms of foam, 115 pounds, which is half the weight of my entire outboard. Half the weight of the outboard just in waterlogged foam. I can't pick this up with one hand. It is just, the bottom end is soaked and full of water and ice, and it's been sitting dry in my backyard for a week. So that's a win. tearing apart the transom, and I honestly feel bad because somebody redid this and used a lot of glue and sealer, and they really structuralized this back. And here I am tearing it all apart. So I do feel a little bad about that, but it's gonna get this raised up a little bit. We may get rid of the warp in it where it's a little bent like that, and put a tunnel in this boat. Again, it's a tough balance between how much work do I put into the boat versus how much do I just say, hey, it worked. And to be honest, I'm kind of on the fence as I do this. I want to get this done as quickly as possible because I want to get out mining. I think it's Wednesday I'm done work. I'm just in here after work chipping away at it. I want this thing done. I want to be gold mining. I don't want to be working on a boat. So I got to balance that. How much effort do I put into it versus can I spend a few days and just sort of tidy things up a little bit, make it a better boat for me for this summer and next summer until I'm ready to buy that dream boat. So tearing apart the transom, kind of mixed feelings about it, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do. Let's get this thing done. Let's get after it. Just doesn't want to go anywhere. Nice piece of hardware though. There you go. Just got some glue to deal with to liberate this thing. I hope this has not been a mistake because that could be really, really hard to peel apart here. Oh, hi there. I want to make this boat faster. And as per that Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson would like to put some speed holes in his car, I've been putting some speed holes in my boat. It did happen to sink once, and I figure everything should be done faster. So now it's going to sink faster. What could go wrong? Step one, I've got my ears in. Safety glasses in tight. This definitely throws a lot of aluminum at your face. But all these little holes I've been cutting out of the hull to help it sink faster, I think I can do better. Gotta keep it strong, so I'm keeping the ribs in. But if I get rid of all of the, I mean, it'll sink in no time at all if I can do that. Gonna let water in so nicely. Oh, and weight reduction at the same time. Fastest gold mining rig on the river. You're witnessing history. Let's get the rest of these out of here. Foam is not good for sinking. It helps you float. So I got rid of that. It's gonna be so fast, guys. No need for that. It's only good for keeping water out of the boat. Doesn't add any strength. All of the pieces at the bottom of the hull that you can now see are missing, as well as the two sides of that seat there. And surprisingly, that weighs 23.1 pounds or 10.5 kilograms. So I am taking some weight out of this boat. It's about as light as it's ever gonna get at this point. Time to tip her. Come on, baby. does it. Whoa, she wobbly. All right, that's better. Okay. Something looks different about the hull. Can't quite put a finger on it. Oh well. That should allow water into the boat very quickly, maximizing our sinking. So on to the next step of rebuilding the thing. Here at Russell Metals, waiting for a guy to come out of that door behind me with a forklift full of aluminum. Well, with any luck, I've got this strapped down properly. See if I can get it home. Thank you for the metal, Russell Metals. Decent amount of it. I'm gonna get these positioned perfectly, but essentially there's going to be a tunnel in between these two. These are 2 inches. And then this to the edge is going to be a bit of an angle. So it'll be like a V-bottom, but flat down the middle, just for simplicity of construction. That will make a slight V-bottom, give a little cavity in between the 2 hulls so all the water can sort of drain out the back as it should. And I'll have a shallow V tunnel hull outboard jet with 1/4 inch thick plate in the bottom. Should go anywhere I need to. This is kind of a tricky part of the process. I'm trying to set this up so that it curves into the bow like this. But at the front, I want to cut it down to almost nothing. And so what I'm doing is I'm scribing. That's why I have it temporarily up that 2 inch piece there, so that when I bring this down, I basically scribe the distance I'm coming up, and then that slowly goes into nothing, and that'll let me get both my curve and this disappearing into nothing. I am so happy with how this turned out. I'm always a little unsure, and I'm working with, you know, fairly expensive things that I don't have spares of, but check this out. We press her down, and look at that. Perfectly follows the hull. Just a beautiful arch to it. Just gotta pin that down. At this point in the boat, I have removed 209.5 kilograms, which is 460 pounds. I didn't know this boat had 460 pounds of weight to lose. 115 pounds came from the flotation foam alone. Then there was the plywood floor, the plywood front, and of course I've removed a good chunk of the floor here. I'm definitely going to be adding a lot of weight back in. So I want to be able to take the weight I put in and subtract the weight I take out, and hopefully only gain like 100 pounds on the entire boat, but get a nice 1/4 inch thick hull on the bottom. Or just like a really, really quickly sinking boat. Always an option, right? All right, let me tell you, if I ever decide to actually build another aluminum boat from scratch, the first purchase that I will make before any aluminum is bought is I'm getting myself a MIG welder and a spool gun. This TIG welder takes forever to weld, and in this kind of situation where you're kind of in an awkward spot, I'm sitting there using my elbow to hit the pedal while feeding the wire with the same hand, or I've got my knee on it or something, and it's just awkward. It's good practice, but yeah, welding is hard. Okay, got her flipped, and what's interesting is just with these on the bottom so far, it's already feeling a lot stiffer than it otherwise was, which is a good sign because I cut out most of the bottom, but adding these have made it a lot more just like less like a noodle. The problem is, well, it's not really a problem, but I did realize this is the last time I'm going to be able to flip this boat by myself, because once I start getting more weight on it, it is going to be too much to handle. I'm just letting that saw cool off a little bit. It's cool outside, it's raining, that's why it's under the sheet, but I don't think I've ever worked it quite that hard. I was using one of these 6 amp hour octane batteries, and it went from 4 bars down to 2 just in this little bit of cut right here. But yeah, 1/4 inch thick 50-52 hardened plate. That's serious. That's a serious haul right there. For a cordless saw that's like 4 years old as well. Not too shabby. My friend came by the other day and he saw this boat and he says, Kyle, please tell me you're videoing this project. So I guess I should make sure that I'm staying up to date on my video. Basically, so far, I bought a John boat and it had a few small leaks in the hull, but other than that, it was a perfect boat. Really good value, came with a nice trailer and an outboard, and I got it all for a very good price. And unfortunately, I'm addicted to these projects, so I decided the biggest thing, peace of mind wise, out there on the river, other than just sealing up the holes so it doesn't sink, is having a bit of a thicker hull. I did crash a boat that I built, I think 3 years ago. It was this really strange situation, over 6 feet deep, super calm part of the North Saskatchewan River. And there was a rock that was like a giant car-sized boulder stuck out of the gravel stuck out of the water about this high, hit it going full speed, which was about 30 kilometers an hour in that boat. And it was enough to just barely puncture a little hole in the bottom. That hull was 0.125 thousandths of an inch, or 1/8 inch thick aluminum. This hull is half that. So I'm a little bit concerned. That's why I figured I should maybe reinforce the hull as part of my project to make it waterproof at the same time. I wanted to go with a 3/16 inch hull, which is 50% thicker than the boat that I built and 3 times thicker than this. Unfortunately, thanks to COVID supply restraints, the only sheet I was able to get is behind me right here. And this is actually a 1/4 inch thick 50-52 hardened aluminum plate. There was no other grades available. I would have gone with a 50-86 and I would have considered a 60-61 plate, but 50-52 is really good because it bends really easily, and if you do get a big dent in it, you just smash it out with a sledgehammer. 1/4 inch thick. Have a look at this. This is a sledgehammer proof, a serious piece. Now I've already cut this strip off of it. You can see that's the cut, and this is just done with a cordless rigid circular saw. It really ate through the battery on this cut, and the next step is I've actually taken the piece that I cut off over there. I'm using the factory straight edge as a guide for this table saw, and in a similar technique to what I did building my high banker. I'm not sure if we can see this here, the way the light is. Now I don't know exactly how deep I need to go. If I cut too far, well, it'll bend really easily, but there's a weak point and I'd have to re-weld that. And I should be able to stomp on it and get those to bend a little bit, and then that'll sort of contour to the bottom of the hull nicely. I may have to go a little bit deeper, we'll see, but this is all basically a circular saw, cutting aluminum. Just wear your safety glasses and definitely hearing protection. If I'm right, I might be able to do this, but it's gonna suck. Because according to my math, this sheet, the part that's cut out of it, weighs 175 pounds and it's 10 feet long, or 12 feet long, and super awkward, but I might be able to get it on the boat by myself. Channel your inner JUJIMUFU. Jesus. All right, and down she goes. Okay, that was impressively loud. Oh man.
You okay, Kyle?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, don't anyone go getting confused and thinking that I actually know what I'm doing here, but the plan, if you could call it that, is instead of actually stitching this thing down to the hull, I've just got it up on a piece of 2x6 and sort of strapped it down back there with some clamps, and I'm trying to like put my weight on this end to see if I can get a bit of a bend into this naturally so that it's like pre-bent when I connect it instead of constantly kind of pulling away from the hull. Not sure if this is gonna work or if it's a good idea at all. So if we have a look at the back here, you can see I want that flat in the middle down there, and then here I've got this little cut right there. So I was hoping I'd be able to bend this down just by stomping on it. I shimmed this up with a spare cutoff because otherwise I could only fold it down to where the edge was and then it would sort of spring back. So here it lets me sort of over bend it, and then by the time it springs back, it's good. And through the combination of a ratchet strap wrapped around and then me basically just putting 1 foot here and 1 foot there and just jumping on it with all of my weight to the point where my heels are a little sore. I've got her bent over. Once I get that other side bent up, then I'll actually start tacking this thing down, and then I'll definitely have to call a friend to help me flip the entire boat over when I'm ready to start stitching up the insides. But so far, I think this is gonna work. There'll be a little bit of like a piece of fairing aluminum I'm gonna put in here. And then the only thing that's just really been tricky to figure out is right here, this edge. So if we have a close look here, you can see how that is actually riveted together. So this is the old hull, and between these two layers there's a sealant. So every time I try to weld, the sealant ends up boiling and sort of coming through the weld and just messing it all up. So I do have some leftover of this, and I may end up just cutting a strip, I don't know, about 2 inches, and then I'll weld it to itself here, and then I can come down, and I have tested I can weld it to this thin stuff here. So in order to get this to sort of follow that line nicely, what I've actually done is, if we get it to focus right up here, I've actually routed this a little lip so that this can fit directly on top of that. Hopefully that actually focuses. Press down, run a little bead of weld, and that should make for a nice transition at the front of the boat. So working alone when you're welding, I've got that pressed up against the roof, come down and put some pressure on this because I need to sort of bend this piece down and into that so it's right tight, and then I'll just tack right on either side of that. I could use like rivets to hold it together, but then I've got to drill out those rivets afterwards. So part of the joys, I guess, of working alone. This part here is going way better than I expected. Clean aluminum to clean aluminum is welding beautifully. I'm just doing little tacks for now. But the vice grip somehow seems to be able to hold this, and because of the angle of that, it actually pulls it in. So everything just gets right tightened up with this one vice grip. And I thought I was gonna have a heck of a time trying to figure this one out. But so far so good. It's interesting, you make a little tack here and it pulls away, and then as it cools it comes right back again. So right where that tack is I just made, I'm going to crank my amps up and hit it real quick to lock it into place. End of another day. I thought this was kind of a creative way of being a one-man welder. I've pinned this thing up to the ceiling, so I've just got a screw holding it there up against the roof, and then basically just put this here so it would slide and kind of pounded it that way. I just noticed that this was sitting up slightly here, so I wanted it right tight down to the hull underneath so that when I welded these all together it would actually stitch it perfectly flat. And if we look down the side, you can see it actually worked, because that is just a bang on straight line, perfectly flat hull. Quite excited about that. The front transition strip worked beautifully. How I took a little router and just made a little notch for this to follow and then scribed it so it fit perfectly. And I think once that's all welded up, if you put paint on that, it just looks like a perfect transition. And this is like, you're not going to hit anything up here unless you're completely blind or intentionally ramming things, but I left these pieces up here, and then this is going to be 1/8 of an inch thick, and this is the 1/4 inch thick plate where all the, like, that's pretty solid. And I think, I've sort of left my mess on there, but it's going to be a pretty nice little hull. Just a really shallow V, outboard jet to go anywhere. That's all for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. So I've got the boat kind of tipped up on its side, just have it sitting on this ladder. I was able to do that by myself. And you'll notice in this spot right here, there's a little bit of a gap. Now I could try to fill that with weld. This is where it gets very loud, hence the hearing protection. But it's right in this area. So it seems like the ladder's pretty sturdy. I've done this a little bit before. And I can kind of just pound this out. So I'll definitely cut the audio for this. And would you look at that? Closes that gap beautifully. One question I often find myself looking up on the internet is, what shape should a tunnel be? So first of all, what is a tunnel? It's something that's designed to take the bottom rear surface of your hull, which would normally feed water to the intake of your jet outboard, and moves that up out of the water by about 2.5 inches. The advantage there is obviously if you're going over some really shallow rocks, the outboard this is the bottom of your hull, the outboard sits like this and it's below the hull and it can hit those rocks. Whereas if you have a tunnel that kind of comes up first, then that outboard can be raised and it's completely off the bottom of the river. So based on some Googlings and having a look around, combined with what I built on my previous boat, this is kind of what I've come up with. And there's no right answer, or no one answer to what size this should be. Some people argue they should be shorter, about 18 inches. Other people say you should have them about 3 feet long, 36 inches. This is 24 inches up my hull, and then I've got it kicking out the back an additional 6 inches. The idea being sort of where my outboard was trimmed sits about here, and I want this lip to be absolutely as close as possible to the outboard. So later, once I get the outboard mounted, I may actually cut this in a little bit to give myself some clearance, but I want to make sure that I'm right up there within about 1/2 inch of the shoe of my outboard for maximum efficiency. I've cut parallel down the side here. It just goes 2 straight lines like this. And then it tilts in slightly at a bit of an angle like that. So when it starts to tilt in here, it starts at 0, and then as it comes up here, it gets narrower. So I'm just going to pick up the camera and kind of show you what I did there. So this is the tunnel that I've put together for this boat. And the top of the tunnel, the part where the shoe of the outboard is actually going to intake, my outboard shoe is 8 inches wide, so my tunnel is going to be 12 inches wide. Then the part from the bottom of the hull here, that is 15 inches wide. So from 15 to 12 inches, the wider you have this, the more potentially clean water flow you're going to get coming to your outboard when you're cornering hard, but you end up getting less efficient, I think, going in a straight line by doing that. So I'm hoping this is a good balance. We'll see how it turns out. As far as the length of the tunnel is concerned, I went 24 inches to where it just barely starts coming up. And I'm actually using the bottom of the boat. It just bends up really gradually. I don't have a weld there. And then at the back, I found in my last boat, this worked really, really well. This plate that feeds water to where the outboard will be is exactly parallel to the bottom of the hull. A lot of guys just take the bent up angle and sort of feed water up towards the outboard. The problem with that is that because the outboard is 8 inches wide and the tunnel is 12 inches wide, you get all the spare water shooting up at the back of the boat, which is bad for your efficiency. So as far as the exact dimensions, what's the best idea out there? Some people say 36 inches long, some people say 18 inches long. Mine's right in the middle there. I think it looks like fairly hydrodynamic, like it should work. I'll get the sides welded on and everything. And then the only other thing is, I said this is a nice smooth gradual angle. This is totally flat. I cut a relief cut right here, and I just bent this so that the angle of what the aluminum is at this point and this point, like this is flat, this is that angle up, this just splits the difference. And if you have a close look down at it, it's going to be a very nice smooth transition for the water to come out the back of the boat. As far as how far this should stick out the back of the boat, sort of where my outboard was sitting, I played with my trim a little bit and got the outboard about how far off the back I wanted it to be. This sticks out slightly further than it probably should, so my shoe might actually be about in here, but that's okay because once I mount the outboard, I'll trace exactly where it is and leave about a 1/2 inch of clearance, because you want the back of your boat to be as tight as possible to the shoe of your outboard without it, you know, flexing in the water and hitting it. What can I say? I'm exhausted. 12 straight hours today. I'm pretty sure I got a meal in somewhere, and it's just slow going, welding. I've done a little bit of fabricating here and there, cutting some extra little bits and pieces that were missing, but essentially I've just been going along and welding the thing. It's been a big day, so I'm just trying to tie this end up here before it gets completely pitch black tonight, and then hopefully I have enough gas left. I've almost gone through an entire tank of argon here, to when I flip the boat. Basically, I just want to get the motor mounted on the back. Shouldn't be too much work, hopefully. And then I'm going to save all the inside stuff for later and just get out and mine as soon as this thing has a motor on the back and a waterproof hull. But yes, that's the update for tonight. I think we're on to day 5 tomorrow, so not exactly what I wanted, but such is life. I'm working with the tools I have. I'm not going to go buy another welder. I want to keep the costs down, so. It's almost 7:30 in the morning. Let's get right back at it. Luckily, KMS Tools is open today because that gauge is starting to look mighty low. This boat is 460 pounds lighter than it was, but then I added pretty much with these side pieces a 215 pound chunk of aluminum to the bottom of it. So I have no idea what it weighs, but before, I should probably just call a friend, but basically I'm going to try to get this thing shifted over and then flipped over without just tossing it and damaging things. So see how that goes. Okay. Oh, that's heavy. Okay. So balance is here, okay. So I have to drag it towards me. It into my outboard. Okay, it's bouncy. I have to get around to the other side of the boat in order to assist it on its way down without letting it just take off on me. Come on. Stay put, little fella. Right about now, I'm kind of wishing I did have a friend over. But hey, if I get underneath it, worst case scenario, I get squished. Yeah, I don't think it's that heavy. Okay, getting myself central here. I'm gonna reach up, toes out of the way. Well, there's an example of how you get lucky, not smart. Just barely avoided the outboard. And, hey, 1/4 inch hull. Not gonna hurt the boat. But, that's a heavy boat. Oh, man. I've done less dumb things in my life, let's put it that way. Oh. Anyways. This is as good of a spot as any. I had to look down this to make sure it's perfectly straight, not bent in or out anywhere. And then I basically took my best guess. This is the line I'm about to cut with the circular saw. This is just a little lip so that water will hopefully go out instead of dripping into the boat if it's a light rain. I've got this side put together. I've welded this on, and what I did is I took 2 pieces of the 1/4 inch hull material and just clamped them in there and sort of clamped down on that, and that allowed me to get these nice little welds in. I may weld that solid at some point, but for now that's just little tacks along the way. The outside of the hull, you can see here sort of how I'm doing that. Just kind of clamp it down, and then if we get a closer look, sorry about the noise there, if we get a closer look right here, you can see that's where there was a dent in the original side rail. Pretty bashed up there, but basically I did my best. There's these little lines here, so 1, 2, and then right up at the 3rd line is kind of where I did it, and I was sort of able to use this piece. I started by stitching up this end of it right here, and then I would sort of like bend it in and out to get it to match this, and it sort of straightened to the side a little bit, which is kind of nice. Then for up and down, I have been getting these pieces in, and I just sort of went vertical 90 degrees. I am keeping this 2 inches back from the floor, so the floor is 4 feet wide, and then this comes up to be 6 feet wide, so it would be 12 inches right here, and I went with 10 inches, just so when you're standing in there you don't hit your leg on the side there. And it seems to be pretty darn sturdy. I've just got that piece of angle running across here. Now I have been using this clamp. Thought this was kind of a clever idea, so what I do is, in order to get the up and down just perfect, so I'll actually set the clamp like this. I set the bottom there, and then rather than actually clamping something between there, you can just squeeze this, and then you'll see that actually raises that up. So you can use that just because one guy trying to get it all jigged together, that's sort of how I was getting the height figured out and sort of looking down it and using levels. And I've got this bar going across here with a level there, and I've got some 2x4s shimmed under the boat to try to get it as level as possible, just so that while I'm welding it together, I want it to be as close to like a square boat as possible. But that's it for now. I think I might still do one video that sort of includes all of this start to finish. Not sure whether that should be a half an hour video, an hour video, or like a quick 10-minute just highlights or something like that. Let me know in the comments if there's something you think I should do. Basically what'll bring more people to the channel and sort of enjoy this project, because it is kind of a unique project. I don't think I've ever seen anyone weld a 1/4 inch plate to the bottom of a old John boat before. All of this kind of came about as I built my own boat that was 1/8 of an inch thick aluminum and smashed into a rock. Whole story, I poked a hole in the bottom of the boat, so I was a little concerned when this boat was half as thick. I'm like, well, what if I do accidentally make a mistake out there? It's just going to tear a giant hole in the thing and I'm going to sink with all my gear. So I wanted to do something to reinforce the hull a little bit, and then I got carried away. I have a little bit of a problem with these projects. But overall, it's been longer than I wanted. I think it's been about 6 days I've committed to this, and in and out of, getting other chores done, spending time with the girlfriend and taking a day off here and there. But it's about 6 solid days so far to get to this point, and the bottom's all waterproof and welded. So I'm hoping that within a few more days I'll have the transom fully welded up. It's going to look really cool the way the transom is going to be made out of, let's see if I can find it here, this stuff. So this is a 2 inch by 2 inch with 3/16 inch wall, and that should be plenty strong. So I'm going to have a couple pieces of that going vertically, sort of tying into where the tunnel is down there, all the way up to the height I'm going for. And then there's going to be a piece coming across the top, and it's sort of going to angle in and tuck underneath these edges so that it's actually going to tie in right to the outside of the boat here, so I can kind of weld it on out here, but then on its way up it's going to tuck under this and then continue up to where it's going to angle and go across. Stay tuned for more. I'll do my best to try to keep posting on Thursday or Friday. I know I missed a week there, but if you're interested in the Jet John hull modification, or you know somebody that would be interested in this kind of thing, please share the video, help the channel grow. Still aiming for that 1,000 subscriber mark at some point. And until then, thank you for watching.